And we are back with another episode of On the Bias. And this is a series that explores the cognitive biases we have as humans and how they impact our behavior change efforts. This is the fourth episode in the 2023 series. So far, we have covered the reactance effect, fluency shortcuts, and sunk cost fallacy. Those posts that we've already covered are available on the website, brooktully.com, and on Spotify, where you are also listening to this one. So, per usual, I'm going to start with a story, and I name this story Grocery Games. So, once a year, I tell myself it's time to find a new cereal. I don't have a real rationale for this push. I just feel like I need to, shake up my cereal game every now and again. I head down the cereal aisle of the grocery store, excited to discover a new box of yummy crunchiness. My eyes are wide open with wonder as I read the first few columns of cereal names. As I slowly make my way down the enormous aisle of options, my excitement starts to fade, giving way to a sense of confusion. How is Smart Start different than Special K? What exactly is a high protein cereal? Are the store brand options any good? And which cereals have the most fiber in them? That's the important stuff right there. I actually start feeling sleepy from this process. And I haven't even looked at the 300 types of Cheerios yet. Who has time for this? So I make a beeline for the cereal I always buy, and that's Special K vanilla and almond, if you're curious, and move on to the rest of my shopping list. So what's happening here? Well, my inability to choose a different cereal from the one I always buy is a classic example of choice overload. The vast number of options presented to me made me feel completely overwhelmed and even tired, which led me to pick the brand I always buy, which means it triggered my status quo bias. If I didn't need more cereal at home during this trip, I would have chosen to buy nothing instead of buying a new cereal. So let's look at the definition here. Choice overload occurs. Choice overload occurs when the complexity of a decision exceeds our cognitive resources, which results in delaying decisions or not choosing at all. The complexity of a decision exceeds our cognitive resources. Have you heard of the JAM study? It's one of the first experiments to test the hypothesis that providing an extensive, meaning a psychologically excessive, number of choices is demotivating for people compared to a limited, manageable set of options. The jam experiment set up a tasting booth of jams in a grocery store. The booth in study 1 showcased 24 jams that you can sample and try, whereas study 2 only displayed 6 jams to sample. Which booth do you think performed best? The one with 24 jams or the one with 6 jams? So this experiment showed that the booth with 24 jams received more attention and more stops for samples. Shoppers were clearly attracted to the large set of display options. However, shoppers who encountered the limited display of 6 jams purchased more jams than those in the first study. There was 31 purchases versus 4. So with a limited set to choose from, shoppers had an easier time choosing. So let's bring this bias home. Have you recently ditched a decision-making process due to an overwhelming number of options presented? Maybe you went on Yelp or DoorDash to find a new restaurant to try, scrolled through Netflix or Hulu to select the next series to watch. Or maybe you made the grave mistake of looking for literally anything on Amazon. Consider what those services could and really should have done to make your choice easier. And if you come up with an answer, it's probably a billion-dollar business idea if you can make it happen. So subsequent studies from the JAM study have shown that in addition to indecision and inaction, Choice overload can lead to feelings of regret or FOMO, fear of missing out. If you do manage to wade through the options in some of these scenarios of like Netflix and Yelp and Amazon and make a decision, your brain may continue to wonder if you made the right choice or if one of the other alternatives or options was a better choice for you. Let's look at how this bias can help or hurt our behavior change programs. We're going to start with the section on how it can hurt our programs. So let's just start with the bad news. Choice overload is rampant in the sustainability space. Project Drawdown recently shared a chart on LinkedIn and probably on their website as well. And the chart shows the top 20 high impact climate actions for households and individuals. These are things like reduced food waste, plant-rich diets, solar hot water installation, recycling, carpooling, buying an electric car, reducing plastic, and things like that. And they're broken up into 4 categories: food, energy, travel, and waste. So this is a very interesting chart to look at, and it's really helpful to see the 20 most impactful things both we as individuals and our audiences can do to reduce emissions. However, it's also really daunting. The goal is for individuals to do all of these things, and even more, things that aren't listed in the top 20. And we communicate the urgent need to do all of these things on a regular basis. Yikes, that has got to overwhelm our audiences. So it may not be surprising to see other data pointing to consumers feeling fatigued. GlobeScan recently put out another chart on their site, and the headline is that consumers feel there is not much more they can do to protect the environment. So around 71% of respondents say that they somewhat agree or strongly agree that I'm doing all I personally can to protect the environment. People increasingly feel overwhelmed by the number of things they should be doing, leading to inaction, indecision, and even a little resistance. Our outreach efforts make it more problematic when we present too many options simultaneously, combined with the sense of urgency that creates time pressure for the audience. Even though we truly need all the people to be doing all the things all the time, there are solutions to providing options without creating choice overload, which will work against us. So for your own projects, consider doing one of the following. Maybe try picking 3 to 5 options for the audience to choose from and not a list of 20. So you can identify a set of actions or behaviors that are achievable and ideally relevant for your primary audience, whoever they may be. The easier it is for the audience to differentiate one option from another so that they don't appear too similar to one another, then the easier it will be for them to pick one. Another thing you can consider doing: breaking up big changes into a sequence of smaller choices. So if we use a project drawdown chart that I described previously, we could ask the audience to first select a sector they want to work on, like one of those 4 categories: food, energy, travel, or waste. I mean, that's only 4 options to choose from, which is great. And then once they choose, we can now offer a next set of options. So dividing up and sequencing the choices creates a simplified process that empowers the audience instead of overwhelming them. And thirdly, we can consider bundling related behaviors together. So our list of desired behaviors can be categorized as bundles instead of featuring a list of options. For example, coming back to the project drawdown chart, we can create a category of one-time fixes for those who have the financial means to upgrade their insulation, their water heaters, their heat pumps, their thermostats, and more. Or alternatively, we could promote a bundle for low-cost sustainability, featuring reduced food waste, public transportation or carpooling, recycling, and reducing plastic waste. Now, our next category is how this bias helps our behavior change efforts. And honestly, this section is a little bit of a stretch. There is not really a scenario where the bias of choice overload works to our advantage. There are, however, general benefits to providing choices that help our behavior change efforts. So I want to cover some of those general benefits to providing choice. Choices provide our audiences with the autonomy and the freedom to select a change they want to pursue instead of it being thrust down upon them. Audiences can pick a path that aligns with their lifestyle, budget, and personality. The process of making a decision can result in greater satisfaction and enjoyment in the choice made. So it's less regret and FOMO as what we saw when folks experience choice overload. Seeing the whole set of options can prepare the audience for future changes they can make when ready. And when I say whole set of options, I still mean within that limited set of 3 to 5. The goal here is to find a healthy balance between zero choice, complete lack of freedom and autonomy, and too many options so that our audience overall feels empowered and motivated to take action. As always, knowing your audience is valuable in deciding how many options you can provide. Expert audiences can handle a more extensive set of choices, since they likely have an existing preference and an understanding of the options and the trade-offs between them, making the decision-making process more manageable for them even with a longer set of options provided. Now, a note of caution, I like to include this in every On the Bias post. Choosing to change a behavior is much harder than figuring out which iPhone to buy. Therefore, our audiences may always hesitate when asked to pick a new behavior. Applying the tips above can make the choice easier, but it won't necessarily make it easy. It's still essential to provide guidance and support for the audience so they have a complete picture of what the change means and how to make it happen. Well, that's it for this episode of On the Bias. I hope you enjoyed learning about one of the many ways we're wired. There is one bias left in the series for 2023, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed listening to this one. And in the written version of the post, there are some published papers that you can check out if you want to load up on your knowledge of choice overload, including one of the first studies that I referenced earlier of the jam experiment to see if a limited set of jams does better than an extensive set of jams. We now know the answer to that one. There's 2 other studies in that paper that is interesting to look at. Well, thanks again for listening. Take care. See you later.